Hey guys, so Lord here, back again with another review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Mattel Masterverse New Eternia Viking He-Man. Now before we get into it here, let's first take a look-see at both the front and the back of the packaging. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now before we get into the meat and taters of this review, Viking He-Man does come with a plethora of accessories. First up, Viking He-Man comes with 4 interchangeable hands, the first of which is this pair of Kung Fu grip hands. The second of which is this singular right fist hand and left open/relaxed hand, or as I like to call it, the turn your head and cough hand. Oh yeah! And is it just me, or does it seem a little strange that the anchor characters in this line, like He-Man, Skeletor, and Teela, get the short end of the stick when it comes to alternate hands? Let me know what you guys think of that in the comments below. Next up, Viking He-Man comes with 2 interchangeable head sculpts, the first of which is this more Viking-esque head. I mean, duh. The second of which is this more classic-inspired head, and with all due respect, ain't got nothing on the Viking head. This thing is metal AF. That said, I will be testing this classic-inspired head out on the new Eternia Battle Armor He-Man figure once it finally comes out. Up next, Viking He-Man comes with 3 different weapons, the first of which is this little dagger, which can sheath on his right boot, and his trademark double-headed battle axe. And last but certainly not least, what would the most powerful man in the universe be without his trusty power sword, of course? Now, unlike the power sword from Motu Revelation we've gotten several times in this line already, this is a much more broader version of the power sword, which I actually prefer if I'm being 110% honest with you. That said, it should be worth noting that the power sword can store in its own designated area on the back of the power harness, unlike the Motu Revelation He-Man where you just kind of stuck the power sword in the power harness. But with as much stuff as this figure comes with, I would have liked to have seen an updated version of He-Man's iconic shield. That's about the only thing missing here. Other than that, I think he comes with plenty of accessories. So with that being said, let's now move on to the aesthetic and articulation. Taking a closer look at Viking He-Man here, and I think this is Mattel's way of saying, you want to talk some shit? Because a lot of you guys out there have been kind of dogging on this line, saying it's the poor man's classics. Well, I got news for you. For all you guys who worship the ground that Motu Classics rests on, I'll tell you right now that I think this He-Man right here kicks the ever-living shit out of all of the He-Men from that line. I don't care who sculpted them. I don't care who painted them. I don't care who owns them. Because I don't know most of them. And based off what I can tell, considering the fact that this guy looks like he is strong enough to take out an entire army and there ain't shit they can do about it, and you can pose him to do that, I think this is quite possibly one of, if not the best He-Man figure in my collection right now. Definitely one of my favorites, not my favorite, just based off aesthetic alone. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. You want to talk some shit? Well, this guy will find you and kick your ass. That said, what an awesome looking figure. I love this figure. This thing is awesome. I don't know, man. This new Eternia line's just doing it for me. On top of the fact that we not only got this guy in Skeletor, we're going to get Zodak in a few months here. And then also a Beastman who is like Skelegod size, so that's pretty cool. Then there's also a Battle Armor He-Man on the way too, so, you know, just wait till they get to Trapjaw. Everyone says that that's like the best Revelation figure. Wait till they give him this treatment. This pseudo concept series slash redesign series look for Trapjaw. Oof, that could be figure of the year. You know, anything Ghost Rider coming out doesn't come out. That said, jokes aside, I love this figure. He looks awesome. He's got his knife in his boot there, as I mentioned before, in accessories. He's got the loop on the back for the sword, so he's got a designated spot for it, if I can find it here. There it is. You can slip it right back there. And it is supposed to sit kind of diagonally, you know, so he can grab it and be all, I have the power to whoop some ass. But yeah. That said, though, going back to this harness, I wouldn't advise taking this off if you plan on removing these shoulder pads and keeping them off. Because this was a bitch to put back together. Because I tried it, I had him with the alternate head and the shoulder pauldrons removed. Looked cool, but I like him better this way. So I put him back together. I had to use the sword to kind of weave these little straps through their designated loop holes here. And yeah, that was not fun. I was a little bit worried I was going to tear this, but it seems fine. No stress marks or anything. So, you know, word to the wise, it's not really a QC issue. It's just a don't F up your toys issue. So, take that for what it's worth. Look at this head sculpt. Kind of looks like he's wearing the same helmet as the skull from the Skeleton Warriors intro. I mean, if you painted that thing gold and put a skull in it, it's essentially the same thing. Side note, that character was voiced by the late great Tony J, who is awesome. If you know anything about voice actors, you know who that is. But that aside, definitely giving me some Skeleton Warriors vibes. That said, as far as articulation goes, his head does rotate, looks up and down. He's got some long hair too. That's pretty cool. I like a little bit in the front maybe. It'll look cool. Oh, does he have some in the front? Oh, he does actually. Never mind. He's got a little bit here. And here. Okay, never mind. I'd like to see what he looks like with a full-on mane though. That'd be kind of cool. That said, as far as popping it off, it's pretty easy. We'll say they're getting a lot better with swapping the heads out on this line. I don't need to heat them up quite as often. Shoulders go out to the side. They go back down, go forward and back. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but this guy is utilizing a new, bulkier upper torso and shoulder sculpt that makes him look a lot more jacked than the Revelation figure, which we will compare him to, but as far as the overall bulk on this guy goes, he looks like a truck. But the shoulders do move forward and back, out, back down. The shoulder pads get in the way, or get out of the way, excuse me, pretty easily. They don't look unnatural unless you do that, which even then, that's not bad. And they're connected here, so, you know, they'd move like that anyways. Bicep swivel there, double jointed elbow. Wrists do rotate and hinge. Again, not with the right hinges on the grip hands, but it is what it is. This piece is a separate piece, so that's cool. It's got a diaphragm joint. Crunch forward, not really back. Tilt side to side, pretty good though. It's got waist cut. Works pretty well. He's got a little bit of bobble up there in the upper torso, but you're going to get most of your rotation down here. Hips are a little hindered on this guy. I think the loincloth is a little bit dense. It's not quite soft enough to move out of the way, which is a shame because I'd love to pose this guy a little bit more dynamic, but again, still better than the Multi Classics. He can pretty much do the full-on splitsies. Not a problem. He can kick forward enough. I think it just gets kicked out to the side because of how tough this is. Maybe if you were to heat this up, it'd be a little easier. Is it just me, or is this more of like a loincloth than like the furry underoos we're used to seeing? Am I tripping? I don't think I am. It's got a thigh cut, double joint at the knee, which works pretty well. Pretty tight on both sides, but not tight to where you feel like you're going to pop the boot off. He does have a boot cut here. And he does have a ankle rocker with the hinge. And the feet are actually sculpted on the bottom a little bit. A little bit tricky to stand that way, but not too bad. He's pretty solid. That said, if you do have trouble standing him, he does have peg holes on the bottom of the feet. You can use one of the McFarlane stands with him. The peg holes are actually a little looser on the Viking He-Man and actually the Barbarian Skeletor as well for the McFarlane stands, but they do still work. They are effective enough, I think, to help you get them to stand. But with that being said, I love this figure, man. One of my tops for the year. And you're going to hear me say that a lot because we're going to be reviewing more from the recent Spawn wave with Haunt, if that's not already up. But kind of pinpointing my tops for the year, and needless to say, some stuff's getting dethroned. With that being said, let's now move on and take a look at some size comparisons. First up here is Viking He-Man next to the Motu Origins He-Man with the vintage-inspired head, as well as the Motu Classics Snake Armor He-Man who can't even put his right arm down all the way. Best Motu line ever though, right? Next up here he is alongside the Masterverse Motu Revelation He-Man and Savage He-Man, aka Not Ular. And last but certainly not least, we have our two regulars, the Mythic Legions, Brother Mandibulas, Livid Spawn, who as usual, towers over everyone. But in this case, I do believe that Viking He-Man is capable of holding his own against good old Al Simmons here. So that being said, time to wrap things up. Some final thoughts. Overall, and if you haven't been able to guess it until now, I absolutely love this figure. I'm going to stick by my previous statement in saying that this is by far one of, if not my favorite figure of, the most powerful man in the universe in the entirety of my Motu collection. Granted, I do still really like my 2000X Snake Armor He-Man figure from Classics, but at the end of the day, you can't do this with that figure. I mean, I've tried, but failed miserably because he just doesn't have the articulation for it. That, and I love a He-Man that looks like he's about to throw down. This guy looks tough. This guy looks like he's going to kick everyone's ass on the battlefield and walk out without a scratch on him. And that's the He-Man I like. Yeah, the Filmation one's cool. Yeah, the 2000X one's cool. And yeah, the mini-comic stuff is cool. But this, right here, this is your boy Speed right here. I absolutely love this figure. If you're at all a fan of Masters of the Universe, then I highly suggest you get on board with this new Eternia line because I think it's gonna give the Masterverse line the spice it needs to spruce it up a bit. Yeah, it's a new-ish kind of concept series, bringing in some new things while still keeping things classic and being tried and true to the original designs of the characters. Just making them look a lot more badass in my opinion. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you're so inclined, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know whenever I upload more reviews like this one. If you haven't already, please hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil. The world sucks enough as it is, especially when you go into battle without a shield. I mean, I love this figure, but should have had a shield, man. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later.